Yes, food security, if you look at it in global terms, it has improved. But when we look at the localized effects, when we look at countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, the progress has not been so good. In fact, in many of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, food security situation today is in fact worse than it was a few years ago. And there are several reasons for that. I mean, it is linked to production of agriculture, but it is also linked to what you will call access of people, the monies for people to get the food which has been produced. So in sub-Saharan Africa, you have big problems of access to food. In other regions, things are a little bit better. But overall, in terms of if we were talking about the MDGs, if you know, basically it looks like in order to cut the prevalence of undernourishment, for example, to 50%, which was the target, we will have to work very, very hard over the next 2 years till 2015 to actually do that. But if you were talking about cutting the number of people which were hungry in 1990 in half up to by 2015, I don't think that will happen. For me, basically, there are several different factors which come together. Food security is very, very complex. Okay, obviously it is about availability. The food has to be there, so we have to focus on the production of food. We have to reduce the waste of the food. You know, in the world right now, about 30% of the food which is in fact produced is wasted, either before it comes to your plate or after it, or it is on your plate. So we have to deal with that. That's one reason. So it is about the production of the food itself, availability of the food. And when food is available, it is about access to the food. So food has to, it is tricky because food has to stay affordable for people who use food, who consume food, like you and I. We don't produce it. But the prices of food have to be higher for people who produce food. Because if they're not high enough, then there is no incentive in producing it. So on the policy side, you have to focus kind of like on both sides. But most importantly, you have to keep the trade open. Most of the times, like if you look at the 2007-8, global food crisis, a lot of that was also linked to people closing their borders. So I mean, if let's say one country relied on food being sent from here to them, but it wasn't because this country now worried about the food itself, then it is a problem for both countries. And that is, again, on the policy side, doesn't matter, what is the supply situation. We have to keep the borders, keep the trade going, and basically start working now. Because if we are saying that by 2015 we were going to have 9 billion people, that is a big target. So we have to start focusing on agricultural production, on keeping food affordable for people, and also on the reform of agriculture itself. And all of this has to be done in the time when you have issues with, you have climate issues, you have global warming issues, which need to be addressed. Basically, you have to keep the markets clearing. Stay away from, again, I mean, this is what I just said earlier, basically. Don't impose trade restrictive policies. Let the trade do its course. I think that's one of the most critical policies which the governments can adopt when there is some sort of a market failure. The second thing is to don't hoard. If you have a reasonable stock to use ratio, that's good enough. Don't try to go more than that. But the most important thing is having the safety nets in place. Because when things are going to go bad, that is not necessarily the time to set up safety nets. Safety nets are something which should be there, at least the architecture, the structure, and all of that. So when something goes wrong, when you have high excessive price volatilities, or some other problem for that matter, which is affecting markets, your safety nets have the ability to expand, to cover those issues. And I think it's about a twin track approach then at the end of the day. One, focus on the agricultural side, make sure that production is there, make sure that the people's access to food is there. And two, it is about social protection. It is about making sure that when things are bad, people can rely on short-term targeted assistance.